Okay, welcome everybody to another March Monuments race. We're in week 3 and today it's Paris Roubaix, which is, you can see from the profile, pretty flat. So it's going to be a fast one. I think this is going to be one for the strong men, and I think we're likely to see quite a largish group staying together and getting to the finish together. So if there are going to be any breaks, I don't expect to see them until the tail end of the race. And even then, I would have thought this is going to come down to the last few kilometres. Maybe a solo break in the last few kilometres or a bunch sprint. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm looking forward to this one. It's going to be fast and furious. Team tactics could well play a part today because of the profile without the big hills to break things up. This could come down to a team trying to dominate it, which is what happened in week 1 when the OTR did the honours. They totally bossed the whole race, and one of their riders took the win. So and he's riding again today. That's Maxime. So I'm just looking at the rider list. I can recognise one rider from yesterday's Sportive, and that's in fact 2 riders from yesterday's Sportive. We've got Plager and MTO. They both rode yesterday. Brooke Wavel is always a rider who's up the front. But Maxime Turcotte will be the man to watch. He got beaten last year. Get my words out. He got beaten last week by one of my teammates, Steve Brearley, but I would have expected him today to put in a good show. Certainly he'll have his team working for him today, and as I've already mentioned, I think we'll see team tactics playing a large part in the action today. So this should be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. We get underway in 3 minutes' time. We have 31 riders signed up when I checked about 30 minutes ago. So currently 26 on the line. They're not using any bots, which, once you get above the sort of like 25 rider numbers, you don't really need them. The only thing that bots help out really is the riders at the back that tend to get dropped, and then they have somebody to ride with. But I would have thought today it could well be different, because I think we're going to see maybe 2 or 3 groups on the road. You're going to get the fast group at the front, and then I think you're going to get smaller groups behind. So we'll see what happens. Now, for those new to the streams, I'll just explain. I have to be in the race in order to cover it as commentator, but I'm not racing purely and simply because this race category is beyond me anyway. But I've been full of cold for the last week. I'm still not in a very good condition. I certainly won't be riding tomorrow's Sportive, which under normal circumstances I definitely would. But I'm struggling with my breathing. I'm struggling with I'm clogged up. So if my voice sounds a little fraught at times, that's the reason. I'm getting out of breath just talking, so the chance of riding is just a complete zero. I will get on the bike, obviously, to turn the pedals, because that's what I have to do every 30 minutes. And I'm going to, as soon as we get underway and I can follow the riders off the line, I'll start to set my alarms and make sure that we don't have a fiasco where I'm constantly getting kicked out. And as I say, I'm out of breath already. So I'll do my best to cover. I'll be going for a cup of coffee around the halfway point, so leaving you to it and then coming back and continuing commentary. But you'll hardly notice any difference. The cameras will certainly be following the race throughout. Okay, time to get on the bike. And I will, of course, have every rider coming in today. There we go. So I've just got to wait for my cadence to show and then I can get off and we can follow the front of the race. There's my cadence showing. So I'll now again jump off the bike and we'll find out what's happening at the front. And we got Plager, who rode yesterday the full 65 kilometres. So he was doing his work yesterday. And I think it's going to take a few kilometres to settle down. You can see it's a slightly downhill, well, you can see from the profile, 2.5 slope. So it's a slightly downhill start, which is making for a very fast affair. I mean, 60 kilometres an hour here. So it'll settle down once they get on the flat, which in about half a kilometre more maybe. They'll get on the flat section after this hill, downhill. And then give them a couple of kilometres to get the adrenaline out of the system. And I think you'll find it will settle down. It'll settle down fast. It's going to be a fast race. This is not one for the squeamish because this is going to take some covering, I think, today, just to keep up with the riders on the road. I mean, this is a large group all made it to the bottom of the downhill. And what I'll do is I'll spin round and we'll work our way through. I mean, if I zoom out to give you an idea of the size of this group and who the chasers are. So let's swing round and have a look behind them and see. You can see on the road behind them, you've got a couple of individuals chasing. And so what we'll do is we'll go back to the regular view and then I'll pan through the group. So here we are. We'll go back. There we go. So this is the overhead view, and what I'm going to do now is work my way through this group to the back, and there you go. So you've got 22 riders in the front group, and then you've got Jay Pollock from TFC trying to close the gap. He's 36 meters adrift. He may well close up this gap. He's certainly putting in a good effort here. You can see by his numbers, as is the last man off the group as well. So when you do get tailed off, you really have to put in a big effort to get back on, and you have to keep it going. Just hope he doesn't run out of juice before he gets there, because it would be a shame. He's putting out 7 watt kilo, and if he doesn't manage to close the gap. But it looks like, yeah, he's good on the lad. He's done it. Now, that's a very good effort, Pollock. Well done. Now, what he needs to do, and I say this every week, is he needs to ride through the group. It's no good staying at the back. Yeah, good man, good man. That's exactly what he needs to do. If he tried to hang off the back of the group, what you'd find is he would start to yo-yo. He would get dropped again. He would have to close up. He's done the perfect thing, which is to get in the middle or towards the front of the group. And now he can sort of, like, if you look at his watt kilos down to 2.4, he's now taking a bit of a break. So he's at the back again, though. So you really need to concentrate when you get back to the group and ensure that you stay in the middle or towards the front. You can't afford to get pushed to the back, because you simply get thrown out the back again. And I know this from personal experience. I've done it so many times. I learned the hard way about the drafting in RJT over many weeks of racing the Flemish for Beginners series. I like to think I've learned a lot in that series over the weeks, and I'm a much better drafter now. So Pollock's done well, look, he's coming towards the front. So let's move back through the group. Let's get an overhead shot if we can. Overhead shot, and let's find out who's behind this group, if there's anybody else on the road. Yes, there is. So they've got Gregory, or Gregoria, however you pronounce it, and he's currently 324 meters adrift. So he's chasing a group of 23, very unlikely to close that gap as a single solo rider, and his watt kilos tell you that he's not going to close that gap. The gap's going out. So his best option really is to join up with these riders behind him. So you've got Sami, Van Brekel. Now Van Brekel's a name that rings a bell, so surprised to see him not in the front group. Maybe he's been caught out, as you know, some of these riders can get caught out. So you've got Van Brekel, you've got Tash, and you've got Sami, and they're a small group of 3 who will catch up with Gregoria and join together. And then behind them you've got Fal. Now Fal rode the full course yesterday, so he had 65 kilometers in his legs before he even started this race. So maybe he's just on another outing, because at the moment, being so far adrift, he's not going to close that gap. So I think he's, you know, he may well close up to the small group of 4, but he's certainly not going to catch up with the front riders at this point. And maybe he's realised that, and he's just going to ride his own race. And then another 200 meters behind Fal, you've got Reimer, and he's just, yeah, looking at his watt kilos, he's just in the race for experience, I would have thought, because he's certainly not pushing out sufficient watts to even close up the gap with Fal at the moment. I mean, things can change. It's a long, you know, for these tail enders, we're looking at 3 hours plus to ride the course, and that's a long time. So anything can happen, it can change. There's me on the course, and Verheer looks like he hasn't even started yet, which is a bit of a shame. So hopefully he will get going, and then we'll get back on the course. I just have to remember to get back on the bike every 30 minutes. So I'm going to set my alarm shortly. And then obviously these are the riders at the back. But we're going to get back to the front, because that's where the action is. And using this commentator's software, I use the N key on the keyboard to get back to the front of the race. That gives me the leading rider at the time when it's pressed. That doesn't mean he's going to stay the leading rider, because it's constantly changing over. So let's have a look and see who are the people working hard in the front group. I'll just find a suitable view to do that. It's a bit difficult at the moment because there's such a large group, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the front end of it, but from an overhead point of view. Okay, so we've got Plager in there. We've got Brook Wavel. He's now joined this group, which is no surprise to me. The fact that he was one of the small group chasing behind was a bit of a surprise, but now that he's in this group, I'd expect him not to have any difficulty. He'll use his racecraft to just ride along with this group. You've got James Ogilvy, who's a current rider highlighted at the moment. He's just making his way to the front. Very clever, very smart rider. A very good team member of OTR, and also the race organizer, I might add. But he's very clued up when it comes to racecraft. So I think him and his team are likely to start developing some race tactics when the race gets really underway. It's too early at the moment. You know, they've only done almost 6.5 kilometers, and there's another 90 to go. So it's too early for race tactics at this point. but I'm convinced that James will be a big part of those tactics because he has been in the last couple of events, last couple of races. So the only thing I would ask OTR boys is I wish you would all put OTR after your name like James has done, because sometimes it can be difficult to remember who the team members are. And as I get further into commentating on races and this lot, I'm going to start keeping my own lists and everything. But at the moment, it's a bit difficult. I'm still relatively new to this game and relatively learning what's going on. So let's see if I can find an angle that works better. That's better. The trees do make it a bit difficult on this course because all the roads are lined with trees. So unless you're looking at an overhead, a front or a rear view, you tend to get the camera angles tend to be obscured by the trees, and it can make following the riders a bit difficult. Especially you can see the twists and turns, so it's not it's not easy to follow everybody. But let's just have a look and see, are they still all together? Have we still got 22 members up the front? I think let's work his way down through the group and see if anybody's dropped off the back. Okay, so yes, you can see here that Sakini and Boschian have dropped off. They're 670 meters adrift now. So and doing the kind of what kilos I would have thought is going to see that gap growing. They're not really. When you get dropped off, you really have to push out the watt kilos in order to close the gap fairly quickly, because when it starts to go up, you're on a bit of a loser, because it's just going to grow exponentially if you're doing less watt kilos than the riders in front of you, which is the case here. So these two, and then you've got. I think these were part of the small group that we had behind. I don't think these are dropped off the front. I think these are riders that are chasing. So, and you can see that Tash is putting out some decent watt kilos to try and help and close the gap. And you've got Sami working hard as well. So these three may well come back to the main group. They're only just over a kilometre adrift. So, there's no reason why, if they continue to work hard, they can't pull back the gap. And then Fowles in no man's land, poor lad. May well pick up Reimer, who's behind him, a bit later in the race. Or he may close up on this group here, but that's a tall ask for a solo rider. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it. And then obviously Reimer is currently last man on the. Oh no, he's not, because I can see. Oh no, he's not. No, he's not riding. So Reimer is the last man on the road. I was going to say Vahe, but he's still not riding. So, and there I am. I've got another 10 minutes and then I'll get on the bike. So let's work his way back front without going straight to the front. We'll work his way back through so that we can see who the chasers are. So you've got this small group of three, and they're chasing these two riders in front. Now, if they join together, and there's no reason why they can't, because there's only 270 meters difference, if they join together with these two, then that's going to make a small group of five. And these two are already closing up on the front group. So I see no reason why they shouldn't work together and try and close up to this group here and all come back together. So we could have the majority. How many riders have we? We've got 30 riders online, and we could have as many as 26 of those 30 riders all riding in this front group if it comes back together. And there's no particular reason why that couldn't happen. Whether it will or not is another matter. And I've just spotted somebody else who I think will be in with a shout at the end. Decker's racing today. I think he raced last Saturday, and I called him out as one of the riders who I expected to be in for the win. And I think he got caught out unexpectedly and ended up having to really work hard. In the end, did he get third or fourth place? He got third or fourth place in the end, but the two that rode away from him, I think, caught him by surprise. And that was Maxime. And in fact, yes, he did. He finished third. It was my pick to finish in the top three. So he finished third behind Maxime, Turcotte, and Stephen Brearley. Stephen Brearley, my Team 3R teammate, took the win, and I picked him correctly. But I don't think Maxime Turcotte will get away from him this week. I think, once bitten, twice shy. I'd expect Decker to keep him on a tight rein today and not let him break away and catch him by surprise. So my pick for today, I'm not going to do so yet, but certainly Decker's going to be up there. Turcotte is obviously, because he's had a first place and last week a second place. So this is his third race. And to be honest, he's looking really good for the overall. Stephen Brearley is not riding today. So I think Maxime will certainly pick up points for the overall and probably cement his place today. A good performance today, and he won't be able to be caught for the overall with a first and a second. So we'll see what happens. I'm expecting good things from Brook Warvel today. Always a strong rider, but the thing that impresses me about Brook Warvel is he's a clever rider. When you watch him, you can see him saving his energy, and the way he does that. Pretty clued up rider. I've just noticed Armstrong is in this group. Not Lance, I'm afraid. Another Armstrong, Mr. M. Armstrong, and I'd expect him to be one of the strong riders doing a lot of the work on the front. So there's a few other names. Ellis is in there, always a good rider. Simmons. I mean, all these riders that I'm calling out now are not necessarily going to be making up the very front towards the end of the race, but we'll get into that later as it starts to, as the race starts to develop. What's going to happen with this is you're going to get a feel for the riders that are A, both saving energy, B, riding smart, and C, allowing other riders to do their fair share of the work and not wanting to do too much work at the front themselves. I mean, it all comes down to riding smart, but there's different ways of riding smart. Now, yesterday, if you watched, sorry, I'm having trouble with my breathing again. Yesterday, if you watched the sportive that I covered, there was 3 riders more or less in the running for the first finisher or the win, so to speak. And I called out the 3, and one of the 3 was a rider called Team A. And if you'd looked at the group he was in, there was a small group broke free of 5 or 6 riders, and then it got whittled down to 3. But when it got whittled down to 3, he was pulling the other 2 riders along for long spells of the ride. And I commented that he was without doubt probably the strongest rider of the 3. But what I said was that he wouldn't win the event because he wasn't riding smart. He was basically doing pulls on the front, and the other guys were just saying, yeah, okay, if you want to pull us along at 4 watt kilos, Get on with it, lad. We're just going to sit on your wheel. And that's exactly what they did. And then they just toasted him at the end of the ride. They just left him for dead because he'd burnt all his matches, pulling them along, showing him he was the strongest rider. And they were canny enough just to let him. And, that's what I would have done. I would have just said, well, get on with it. I'm just going to sit on your wheel. So the riders that we've got in the race today are smarter than that. They're not going to make that silly mistake of sitting on the front and pulling the other strong riders along. I mean, Turcotte and Decker are two of the strongest riders in this group, but I can guarantee you they won't be doing too much work on the front. They'll be doing the fair turns, but they certainly won't be pulling the group along for long spells. I've just noticed Gill's in this group, so he's doing his share. Dowd is in this group. Yeah, this is a good group of racers we've got here. This is going to get exciting as it gets further into the race. I do think. I mean, how many have we got here now? Let's just have a count. We've got 21 in the front group. It was 22, so we've lost one. So 21 in the front group, and I would expect these 21 to stay together for a fair distance into this race, without any real difficulty. I mean, if you look at the watt kilos that's going on at the moment, 3 watt kilos is like, the guys on the front pulling the group along. That's not particularly as high a pace as I expected. I did think that it would be like 3.5, 4 kilos. So there's no, I mean, let's give you an example. Look at Decker's figures, 145 watts, 164 there, but on average is about the 130 mark power wise in the group, and obviously when he gets near the front it's a bit higher, but that's nothing for a rider of his ability. Let's swap rider and let's see. Yeah, Armstrong on the front. He's pulling higher wattage, doing the work on the front. But the smarter riders like Decker, they're not putting out that kind of wattage just yet. And therein lies the difference, with racecraft. Let's see if I can find another example for you. So let's work his way down. James. Okay, so look at James. James is working really hard to stay with this group, because he'll admit by his own, James will come into his own later in the race when I think tactics will come into play, and I think you probably see him going off the front again and testing people's legs for his team. But I don't think James is in the same league when it comes to strength out front as Decker and Turcotte, and he won't mind me saying that. They're different animals, and I've yet to see Turcotte actually. So let's find out what kilos Turcotte's putting in. See if we can find him. There's Decker again, and look, Decker's figures. He's just, his power is nothing. It's like occasionally you get a high figure posted, but the rest of the time it drops down to he's putting in a bit of an effort now. Yeah, that's commentator's case. Yeah, there you go. He's back to his usual 130 mark. Let's see if we can find Turcotte. Where is he? Where's he gone to? Here we go. He's further back in the group. I just want to highlight Turcotte and show you how he'll be using his racecraft to sort of like save his watts. If we can find him, where is it? I mean, this is why, please. Here we go. RGT, give us the ability to be able to select riders with a mouse and not have to flick through with the keyboard. Because this is MTO, he's doing well. And he rode yesterday, so yeah. This is a nightmare. Trying to find a rider when you can only flick through them. There we go. Let's take up. So when you're trying to find a rider and you can only flick through them one at a time, either up or down, it can be really, really difficult. I think eventually they will give us the ability to be able to select riders and not have to use the keyboard to go up and down. So Turcotte is, yeah, he's putting out some decent wattage. His heart rate is steady-ish, steady away. So he's not working too hard at the moment, but he's putting out some good figures. And as I say, I don't think you see anything really changing with these front 21 riders for a little while yet. So let's work his way. Let's change the view if we can, and then let's work his way back through the group and see what's happening. So, and you have to do that one rider at a time. So what's happening now is, there we go. I'm flicking through the group, and we've got the chasers here, and the chasers are Sakini, Gregoria, Tash. Yeah, this is a small group. I said, and sure enough, remember I said that there were two riders behind this small group up front of three. Well, they've joined together as I expected them to do so. So it's now a case of, can these five riders close up on the leading group, because this is group 2 on the road. It's a big ask. They're 2.1 kilometers behind, and that's a lot to try and pull back. But never say never. So let's find out what's happening behind them. And you've got Fal still on his own, still out on his own. I'm a little bit surprised that him and Reimer, did Reimer ride? I think Reimer rode yesterday as well. So I think both Fal and Reimer did yesterday's ride, and they were riding that as individuals as well. So yeah. Anyway, I need to get back on the bike and turn the pedals over. So let's go to me. There I am. And just make sure that we check my power is showing. So there's my power. And then I'm just going to wait for the cadence. There's the cadence. And that's all I need to do. Just turn the pedals over and make sure my figures are showing. And then for the next 30 minutes, I'm back in the ride. But let's go back to the front end and the 21 riders. And obviously we had Mr. Turcotte on the front. So nothing really is going to be going on with this group for quite a while. In terms of commentating, all I can do is just offer insights into the different, the different riders in this group, and highlight a few and show you their numbers. And it's interesting to watch their heart rates. I mean, Turcotte's has come right down now. Remember, it was 155, so it's now 127. So it's hardly working at all. Gregor's Wi-Fi gone, did he say? It's very difficult to try and follow the chat as well as follow, when I'm switching the cameras around, following the action. Obviously, I'm getting distracted from the chat that's going on screen. What I'm looking at is to try and use one of my phones to to put the chat on a different monitor so I can actually keep an eye on it and interact with it, because I would like to be able to comment on the chat that's going on. I mean, Armstrong's saying that RGT needs strong Wi-Fi, and he couldn't be more right. Wi-Fi is the biggest reason why you're going to have difficulty in RGT if you losing connections and this lot. Oops, so is that a rider going off the front? Let's have a look and get back to it. No, it's just okay. So yeah, Wi-Fi is the one thing that you really need to concentrate on. Make sure you've got a good Wi-Fi connection. And what I actually did to solve my problem, because I was having difficulty connecting, I installed a second router. So I've got our main router downstairs in the living room, and then my pain cave is upstairs in the attic. And what I found was that the Wi-Fi just wasn't really strong enough. And I initially tried a repeater, but a repeater isn't the answer. Yes, you can boost the signal slightly, but you never get that solid Wi-Fi signal that you'll get with what I've done, and that's purchase a cheap second Wi-Fi router, hardwire it into your PC, and then obviously your phone downstairs in your living room can use your first router, and then you switch the Wi-Fi when you come upstairs into your bedroom or your attic, as I do. So I have two Wi-Fi sources. I have my main one in the living room, and I have my pain cave Wi-Fi. And I never have Wi-Fi difficulties. RGT have the server difficulties, and they're the only problems I've had over the last few weeks. I couldn't get into one of our group rides when RGT had their problems on was it last Tuesday? But to be honest, I'm a bit glad it happened, because I was starting with this cold, and by Thursday there's no way I could have ridden. And I posted a message on the forums telling people, I was ill and I couldn't ride. So, but they're the only problems I've had where RGT now have gone down themselves. I don't have any connection issues whatsoever after I've installed this second Wi-Fi router in my attic. So, and I've got a pretty good setup here, but I'm in the process of rebuilding my studio from scratch, and there's some pretty nifty changes coming to my commentary, because here I am sat in my pain cave with what you can see the race on screen, and I'm not really you can't see me, I'm not showing. Well, that's going to change because I'm setting up a studio where I'm going to be sat in my game chair, and you're going to be able to interact with me. I'm going to have the chat so that I can interact with the chat, and there's a couple of other changes. I'm going to have a proper interface for my channel. So some big changes coming up, and I'm also going to be doing some recordings rather than just live streams, because the live streams have sort of taken over my channel at the moment, and I just haven't had the time to do recordings, but that's going to change as well. So this group, you've got a couple of riders pushing things along. I'm struggling to get a good view. Pushing things along, but nothing really is happening. I mean, riders, yeah, they're dropping off the back slightly, but then, a couple of pedal turns and they're getting back on, like Truvos here. So, in between the trees. Let's find out what's happening to the next group on the road. And once again, it looks like they've broken up, because you've got 3 riders here. So I'm going to, let's see if we can find out what's going on the road. Can't see anybody behind them. I like to switch this view and look behind them to see if we can see who's been dropped by them. But obviously, these are the riders. Two of us is still hanging off the back. He may well get dropped from that group if he continues to hang off the back like he's doing. So you got these three riders on. It was five, so there's two riders on the road somewhere. There's one of them, and he's 170 meters off the pace of the three in front of him. And then you've got Gregor. Now remember the message he posted? So he had a dropout. So this is not his own doing, poor lad. And he's going to struggle now. He's 1.3 kilometers adrift. So that's going to be a tall ask for Gregor to come back to the group that he was with. And they're certainly not going to sit and wait for him. So he might have a lonely ride on his own for a good while. And then obviously behind him you've got Fal. And as yesterday, he was quite happy to ride the Sportive almost all on his own. And it looks like he's doing much the same today. And the same goes for Reimer. Reimer rode the Sportive all on his own as well. So I don't think those riders are looking for company. I think they're just happy to ride at their own pace and finish the race. But these riders up the front, the pace is being pushed along nicely. This is a nifty pace. It's not quite as high. Oh, who's putting in? Look at the red numbers. So some riders are putting. It's because they're getting dropped off the back. Look. Okay, well, let's just get to the back, and there you go. These riders look, and if we swing round the camera, which we can do nicely, you can see that the reason for the red numbers is because they're chasing to get back on. I do like the ability to be able to flick around in this software. It's really good. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to get a good view, but when you can get a rider chasing like this, I don't think this rider's going to get back on. Look, the gap's opening up, and the front riders, if you go up to the front riders, are doing 39 kilometers an hour, and he's doing 29. So 10 kilometre an hour difference tells its own story. Look at the gap growing with each pedal stroke. And he's probably knackered from trying to close the gap. So he's just going to have to settle in and possibly be picked up by the three riders behind him, because he's certainly not going to close that gap on his own. And even the riders behind him probably aren't going to close that gap anytime soon, but they can at least help this rider get to the finish. You're in a difficult dilemma when this happens. Frymouth here has got to decide. Let's zoom in on him and see if we can get a better picture. There he is. Okay, so Frymouth has got to try and decide, okay, am I going to just continue and ride on my own, as hard as I can, or am I going to ease up slightly and let the three riders behind me, these three, am I going to let these riders join me and then ride with them? But the fact that he's doing, if you look, he's 2.5 kilometers in front of them. That's a bit of a sit up to wait. So maybe they will end up joining him, but I think I'd do what he's doing, and that's just ride my own race, just ride at a pace I'm comfortable with, and when they catch me, they catch me. I wouldn't be sitting up. Not at this point in the race. It's too, there's just no sense in that at all. So you got these three on the road, and then Boston was dropped by them, and he's 800 meters adrift. Don't expect this rider to close that gap anytime soon either. So could be a lonely ride for Bosjan. And Gregor obviously had the dropout. So again, he's almost a kilometre adrift of Boshan in front of him, could join him and could maybe work together a little. Okay, let's get back to the front of the ride and see what's happening. Who have we got? We got James on the front. So Ogilvy is pulling them along. Strong rider. And I'm pretty sure Simmons is his teammate. So yeah, you could see some team tactics coming into play. I still think it's too soon for that. You know, this is a long. We're 40 minutes in and less than a third of the distance gone. So a long way to go yet. Let's zoom in and actually check out. You've got Simmons in the OTR jersey there. Who was the other rider in the OTR jersey? Let's see if we can find out. I know. You see, this is the thing. Let's go to the front of the race and see if we can just zoom out a little. In fact, pick up the OTR jerseys. There we go. So you got two there. You got. I do wish you could click on the riders. This would be so much easier. There you've got Simmons. Who's ahead of Simmons? I don't know who this rider is here. That's James, I think. But who's the third OTR rider? Okay. I am a little bit surprised that I do expect this group to stay together, but I am a little bit surprised that there hasn't been a few more attempts to ride off the front, because there's a lot of riders in this group that aren't going to have a say in what happens at the end of this race. So the only now who's that going off the front? There's Maxime Turcot. Now he's probably just wanting to see who's got the legs today. So he's jumped off the front. Omar's decided to chase him. This is not an attempt to sort of break free. This is just Maxime, testing out the other riders in the group and finding out who are the strong boys, who's going to jump on my wheel, who's going to come with me. And there you go. And there now the team tactics, because you can see James Ogilvy came past, so he's joined Turcot up the front, and this is team, and there's Simmons. So yeah, OTR are definitely. I mean, look, you can see up at the front, OTR are definitely trying the team tactic thing, where one of them is jumping off the front, and then the others pulling up. I still think it's a bit too early, but yeah, they're going to find out which riders are prepared to sort of like dig and go with them by doing this. Now, have we just got the three OTR boys today? Because the other week we had other OTR riders and they weren't actually wearing the jersey, which made it a little bit more difficult to know exactly how many were in the team. I'll just zoom in for you, and the team that's on the front at the moment. Let's have a look. Wattbike, Team Wattbike. They're the other big team in this event, and they've got even more riders. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4 riders in this front, and then obviously you've got Now this group is split, so you've got a few riders being dropped off the back. So what we'll do is we'll zoom back in and we'll check out who the dropped riders are. Now that's a surprise to me, seeing Gil and MTO. I don't know so much about Gomez, but seeing Gil and MTO dropped, although MTO did do the full ride yesterday, so. But was he just scouting out the course? Don't know. And they're 80 odd meters adrift, so 90 odd meters adrift, so tough ask. I mean, it's not much of a slope that we're on at the moment, so, and you can see a couple of riders in front of them, so we'll just catch up with it. Let's catch up with the riders in front of them. They've got the pack in sight, which is always a good thing, even though they are being distanced here, but they've got the pack in sight. And here we go. Ellis is struggling off the back of this pack, but making a real good effort to get back. Now, remember what I said about he needs to, yeah, and that's what he's doing. He needs to ride through the group, not hang out. No, come on, Ellis, you need to do even more. It's no good riding and getting third or fourth wheel from the back. You've got to ride through the group. Let's, come on. There we go. It's a better view. Okay. Got Plager doing some nice work at the front. Okay, so they've really opened up the gap on these three now, so that's probably good night and thank you. These are probably not going to close the gap. So that's the first break of what I think will be many, and that was all down to Maxime Turcot shooting off the front for OTR, which is their tactics, and then James obviously came past him as well to keep it going at a higher pace. That's going to happen more and more as we get further into the race. I mean, we're still only 1/3 distance, so but you're going to see the OTR boys. I mean, James has definitely got his racing legs on today, so he's going to be instrumental in trying to break free. When I say break free, basically what they're doing here is they're wanting to push up the pace, so jump off the front. Bukwavo, that's okay. They're wanting to push up the pace and lose a few riders, because this is way too big a group to take to the finish. I mean, even with the strongest rider in the group, there's no saying that he's necessarily going to take the win when you take so many riders to the finish, you know, especially if it comes down to a sprint. Now there's a rider in front and I have no idea who that is, so maybe is it a late joiner? Let's go. No, it's not. So two riders have just got a bit of a gap at the front, Dowd and Plager. Now Plager rode yesterday and wasn't really pushing himself yesterday, so yeah, maybe it was just an outing for him to have a look at the terrain. So these two have got a nice gap. I mean, you can just see in the distance on this view a sole rider, well, a couple of riders pulling them along. So what we'll do is we'll just switch backwards. So you've got these two 89 meters in front, and then you've got this group chasing. Now this is going to come back together. There's no way two riders are going to hold off how many, you know, I think we've got 15 or so here. So this is going to come back together. But it's pulling, you know, it's up in the pace, and by means of attrition, a war of attrition, you're going to have riders that are going to get dropped. And let's check out the riders that have already been dropped from this group at the moment. So you've got 2 off the front, then you've got this group. I'll just work my way through them. Like I say, you have to do it one at a time. And then these are the 3 riders that got dropped. And I tell you what, they're making a good fist of it. They're not giving up easy. So I don't know. Maybe they could come back together. I don't know. It's a big ask. The thing is, there's so much time left for, you know, everything to change, because this is by no means what's going to happen in the race. Now, this fellow, you remember, was sort of like off the back quite a few kilometres up the road. He was struggling to sort of like stay in touch with the group, if you remember, yo-yoing, and I said, you know, he needs to get in amongst them. Well, he obviously didn't, because, you know, he's obviously struggling with the pace of the main group. So he's out on his own at the moment. May well be joined by Frymouth in a little while. And then you've got these 3 are continuing to ride sensibly together, but they're not really having any impact on the groups in front. They're certainly not going to get up to the first and second groups on the road, so I think I can say that quite comfortably. So they're basically going to be riding for similar placings to where they are at this moment in time. Now, Bostian has dropped right from what I think was up near the front to this position here. Don't really understand why. I know with Gregoria he had a dropout. Fal is just riding his own ride, as is Reimer. So there we go, and almost time for me to jump back on the bike again, which I will do so shortly. In fact, no time like the present, might as well do so now. 51, yeah, why not? So let's go to me and just get back on the bike, get back into the action on the front. So here we go. There we go. That'll do. Okay, so you can see that the 2 riders that jumped off the front, Dowd, I can just see his name there, Dowd, and who was it? Was it? I can't remember, MTO. Anyway, whatever. The 2 riders that jumped, oh, it was Plager, wasn't it? Dowd and Plager that jumped off the front. They're now, in fact, Plager's having another dig. Look, there he goes. So he's obviously feeling good today. But to be fair, I think if he's feeling good, he should be saving it for a bit later, because he's not going to get away. The group are not going to allow a rider to get away at this point. No way. I mean, they don't even need to chase him. Just riding as a group at their normal pace, and they'd pick him back up again. So even if he opens up a 100-meter gap, which he's not doing because they're closing him down already, but if he opened up a 100-meter gap, it wouldn't stick. Nobody's going to get away this early in the race. I can comfortably predict that for you. But it's all good racecraft. It's showing him he's strong. It just reminds me of what happened yesterday with Mr. May. He was doing a similar thing. He was just showing the group how strong he was, and then at the end they just turned him over. is the same thing going to happen here, or is this part of team tactics? Is this, he wants the group speed to increase. He wants to. So maybe I'm doing him a disservice. This could be part of, and let's pick him up because I think is he a member of What Bike? And if he is, they've got a big team presence. Yeah, he is. So this could well be similar tactics to what OTR were using. He's not actually trying to make the break. All he's doing here is raising the pace of the group. And by war of attrition, by using those tactics, you're going to lose some riders. So this is possibly really good team tactics. I didn't realise that he was part of What Bike until I just twigged at his jersey and his orange-red helmet. So yeah, good tactics. I apologise to you, Mr. Plager. I thought you were wasting energy, but you're not. You're obviously playing for your team. And full credit to you for doing that. Yeah. I mean, he's had two. This is his second dig off the front now. And look at the watt kilos he's putting out. There's no two ways about it. I mean, the rider's coming up behind him now. Look at their watt kilos. He's definitely raising the pace of the group. And he's got a teammate, look. This is fantastic to see. OTR chasing. So what's happening here is you've got What Bike bossing the front end of the race. They're the riders. The riders joined him up the road to push up the pace. This is great riding. And a third member of What Bike, Decker. And maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're trying to get Decker. Because don't forget, Decker got turned over the other week. So he's not gonna make the same mistake this week, that's for sure. This is great. I'm loving this. Really good race tactics by What Bike. Well done. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit and find out what's happening with. Yeah, there we go. Look, there's the group strung out now, and that's the whole point of what Bike are doing. The whole point of their tactics. Let's get back to the front end of them. The whole point of their tactics is to try and push the pace along and break things up. I don't know who Dowd is a team member for, because I can't believe that he's just riding for himself and doing what he's doing, jumping off the front. That wouldn't make any sense at all. So, but I can't see any other riders with the same jersey he's wearing. So maybe he's not wearing a team jersey. I think it should be a gimme. It would help me as a commentator and other commentators if all team members had to wear the team jersey. But I know from previous weeks that, even with OTR, their jerseys are one of the nicest jerseys out there. Not all their members wore the jersey or had their name after, OTR after the name. So it can be difficult sometimes. I think what I will end up doing is I will ask the organisers and probably the website RGTDB, which is the database that keeps all the data. I'll probably ask them if they can give me a list of riders and the teams they're affiliated to. And then as a commentator, it will make my job so much easier if I can be checking riders off on a list. So that's something for the future as I get more into this, because I do intend becoming a regular commentator on races on RGT. Once I get a bit more experience and I can polish it a bit more. Because I'm fully committed to the platform. The way I'm sorting out my studio and everything else is for that purpose, to dedicate my resources to helping RGT and growing my own YouTube channel. So how many riders have we got broken free? Let's get the overhead shot and see if we can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 10 riders. So the team tactics and look how many of, let's zoom in a bit. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those 10 riders are actually Wattbike. Now that, and only one OTR. Now that's pretty noticeable and pretty good tactics. So Wattbike are clearly saying here, we're not having OTR dictating things for us this week. We're going to do the dictating. And at the moment, that's exactly what they're doing. Fantastic stuff. I'm sorry about the camera angles. I'm trying to get through the trees and get an overhead shot. So is that the one we want? Will that do? Yeah, that'll do. So now we've got the overhead shot and you can see the jerseys and you can see the riders. So you've got 4 from Wattbike, 3, 4, and 1 from OTR. And obviously you've got the race, the main race contender, Kickr, in this group. I don't know who let's see if I can pick up, Brooke Warvel is the OTR member here with them, and he's a contender, certainly. So exciting stuff. Now they're 100 meters in front of the group behind, so we'll just quickly work our way back and watch what's happening in the group behind. We've got 10 up front. This twisting course is making it difficult to get through the trees. And then these are the chasers. And you've got Ogilvy and Simmons in this group. Now, where's Turcotte? I haven't seen his name, so where is he? I hope he hasn't had a dropout or something, or he's struggling somewhere. Where's Turcotte gone? Let's go back up the road and see. He's there. So Turcotte's number 8. So he must be in the front group, is he? Yeah. I thought it was Brooke Warvel that was the OTR member in this group. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's. I just wish they'd give us the ability. Dowd's having another push off the front. I suspect, that Dowd, because he's pushing off the front with Plager, and I suspect that Dowd is possibly another member of the Wattbike team. Because why else would he be pushing off the front with Plager the way he is? And obviously they're pulling him back now, but it's Turcotte. Turcotte's in the jersey here. Come on. Get back to the action. I'm really struggling to get on the riders I want here. There's Turcotte. There you go. Okay, Brooke Warvel is a Wattbike. I made the mistake. I thought Brooke Warvel was... Yeah, okay. Let's just zoom in and have a look. Yeah, Brooke Warvel, he's wearing the RGT jersey. So there he is. Now, I'm not sure what team he rides for. I really need to get this sorted so that I can, because knowing which team he rides for would definitely help with working out what's happening team tactic wise, because it does look like Turcotte is isolated in this front group, and that's going to be pretty important going forward, because if Turcotte is the only OTR member in this group of 10 riders, then the Wattbike boys are going to work him over. And there goes Turcotte now. Let's get to the front. Look, he's riding off the front. But they're going to do him over. and it's going to be a concerted effort to do so. And they're probably going to be helped by other riders as well, because obviously it's in the other riders' interests to tire Turcotte and get rid of him. Because he's obviously, as a previous winner, he's obviously a marked rider. But he's also a very strong rider, so maybe he'll be able to handle all that the what bike boys are throwing at him. Well, it would be nice to see him joined by one of his teammates. So let's zoom out and find out what's happening behind this group of 10. We'll keep an eye on the number here. So you've got 10 riders in this small group that have broken away. I did say that the groups were likely to split into smaller groups, and that's what's happened. And who's that that's jumped off the front? Let's find out who's jumped off the front. Lions. And again, I can't see whether he's affiliated with any team. So, but he's not going anywhere. These pushes off the front like this are really designed to up the pace. I don't think the real, okay, I'm going to try and make a breakaway type efforts, because that's just not going to work. And at this level, the riders know that. So there's Lions, and there's a group have got him inside, and they'll quite happily let him hang out there. They can give him 100 meters and still pull him back without really breaking a sweat. So, and that's not doing him a disservice. That's just a group working well together will easily close up a gap of a solo rider, however strong that solo rider is. I'm getting sort of like blocked by the trees again. Just this course is so windy that it can be very difficult to get a view that gives you a good overhead view of the riders in amongst the trees. I could switch to drone view and that would do it, but I like the ability to be able to flick around like I'm doing and follow the riders. So there you can see, look, they're bringing the gap back, the gap down without even really trying. So let's move behind them and look at group 2 on the road. James is in this group, Armstrong, Simmons. So there's a couple of OTR boys in this chasing group. They're 300 meters behind. So, and the gap is growing as well. I think that's it for this group. I don't see them pulling it back, even this early in the ride. I just can't see that front group easing up enough to allow this group to come back. So the only opportunity they've got is to really, really push the pace. And at this point in the ride, 45 kilometres into the ride, almost at the halfway point, that's not going to happen. So I think I can safely say this is Group 2, and they're fighting for Group 2 placings. Okay, and then you've got a small group dropped off from Group 2, a little bit further behind. If I just go back up, how much there's a fair bit of distance to these guys here. There's 2.5 kilometers. So again, these are not going anywhere. They're in no man's land. They're certainly not going to pull up 2.5. I say that, I mean, it can happen, but it's unlikely to happen that they're going to pull up 2.5 kilometers. So I think placings here are where they're going to stay unless riders drop back to them. And these are obviously just riders lower down in the race. These three were riding well together earlier on and still continuing to do so, but to reiterate what I said earlier, they basically just riding to finish the race now. Maybe hold the positions they've got. And Fowler's done that from the, more or less the very start. He's just riding his own ride. Poor Gregor had that drop out, so no fault of his own. He's an OTR rider that he's stuck at the back here. And Reimer, as he did yesterday, is just riding to get to the finish. Lyons is still off the front, but and in fact he's opened. They've allowed him to open up the gap a little bit more again. My guess is that they'll allow him up to 100 meters, and if it gets to 100 meters, they'll start to close it down, because that's the point where, you know, if a rider gets 100 meters on you, you've got to really think about, okay, we need to close this down. There's the halfway banner, the yellow kite. It depends. It really depends what the profile's like. I mean, 100 meters is nothing on a flat course like this for riders of this caliber. But, you know, if he's a really strong rider and the course is getting lumpy, then 100 meters high is not to be sniffed at. You've really got to keep an eye on it. And obviously, if he starts to push it pretty quickly over the 100-meter mark, and he's going up slowly here, but my guess is that they're not going to allow him too much more, because he's getting close to that. In fact, they're pegging it about 85 meters, which is what they need to do. They don't want to let it go over the 100 meters, because there is the possibility that he's a strong rider, could push on, and if he pushes it out to 200 meters, the following group are in trouble. Yeah, he's pushed it out to 95 now, and you can see that Turcotte is doing the work on that. And they're in. Okay, let's go to the group behind. You see, they've let Turcotte go on the front to pull this back. They're not gonna come around him anytime soon. Although, having said that, Dowd has decided to make a break. Anders Plager. So they let Turcotte off the front, and the only two riders to come past him are the watt bike riders, to sort of like do him over, so to speak. And that's the tactics. Let Turcotte, you know, use up his energy trying to pull the lone rider that's gone off the front back. I mean, Lyons could well be a member of this team. Like I say, we really need to get into a position in these races where riders are, I won't say forced, but where they have to wear their team jerseys. Because I think it's a little unfair to have riders on the road and not know which teams they're affiliated with. I mean, just supposing that Lyons is a member of Watt Bike, then that's really a bit unfair, because, you know, he shot off the front. James has to, Turcotte has to chase him. And if he knew for certain that he was a member of Watt Bike, that would make a huge difference to him. I mean, all kinds of tactics are playing out here now, because you've got an even larger group. Not larger, but you've got 3 riders now off the front: Lyons, Dowd, and Plager. And I only know one of them belongs to Watt Bike. The other 2 could be team members, but then again, we don't know. I mean, Jan Vanbers is a strong rider for Watt Bike, so he's part of the team tactics where they're really trying to work over Maxime Turcotte, who's now at the head of the race. But they're not going to leave him there. They're going to want to get in front of him and get him to work. They don't want him setting the pace at the front. They're quite happy to let him chase a solo or a couple of riders, but they're not going to work if he sits on the front and tries to do his own pace. They're not going to let him. They're just going to go past. Look, he's on the front now, but they're not going to leave him there. They're going to go past him and change the pace. Let me just ask James. What I'm asking him is whether he has OTR boys. Okay. He should see that message, so let's see whether he... So this group are working pretty well at the moment. Pace is high. I don't expect there to be much change out of this group for the time being. Maybe a couple of pushes off the front like we've seen. There's no two ways about it. The Wattbike team are definitely working Turcotte over. Ah. So Brooke Warvel is, I thought he was, because I remember from previous weeks. So Brooke Warvel, who is riding in the RGT, let me just highlight him for you. So Brooke Warvel, who is riding in the RGT jersey, you can see him here at the front. He's actually OTR, so he should be wearing the white jersey of OTR. So they've got two riders in this group. Now that kind of makes sense with what's been going on. Okay. Yeah, Brooke Warvel's actually apologised. Okay. What I'm saying to, sorry for the silence. What I'm saying to James is, I'm just telling him that it's nice to be able to call the team tactics. I mean, look, what bike are working Maxime over again? So it's nice to call, excuse me, the team tactics, but I can only do so if I know which riders are members of which teams. And that's really helped if riders will wear their team jerseys. Now, Peter Brookwavel has apologised for not wearing the jersey. Apology fully accepted, Peter. I'm not calling you out, sir. All I'm saying that is that in general, if riders, and this is not just aimed at OTR, this is aimed at every team, if riders wear their team jerseys, then from a commentator's point of view, and certainly me, because I'm very clued up on team tactics. I've been riding bikes for more than 50 years. So I've got a lot of experience, and I've certainly got a lot of racing experience, having both ridden and covered right up to elite level racing. So I've a lot of experience that I can give in my broadcasts if I'm helped by knowing, you know, which members I belong to which team, because that's pretty obvious what's going on here with what bike. But there could well be a couple of riders that I've not identified here who are also in the mix. So we'll see what happens. Now, while the action is going on at the front, I'm just going to work my way back because I don't think anything's going to change here at the front for a little while. Work my way back and see whether the poor guys that got dropped earlier on have managed to close up any of the gaps. So let's just do that now, as this nice group of, is it still 10? Yeah, it's still a nice group of 10 are working really well together. And this is pretty impressive riding because they're not hanging about. And despite, regular pulls off the front by the watt bike guys trying to break it all up, it's being kept together with some really good, strong riding. So well done, guys. Let's. Okay, so we've got James's team here, James Ogilvie and his team behind. The two boys in the OTR are out front pushing the pace up, and they have actually closed the gap. So full kudos, because that's incredibly difficult to do with a group motoring on like the front group are doing. To pull any kind of distance back is pretty impressive. And they are doing that. So you can only take your hat off to James. Is it Tony Simmons? Let me know. But yeah, you can only take your hat off to this group for putting in the work. And in fact, even Armstrong, who I said was a strong rider earlier, is doing a nice fair share at the front as well, as are the other boys. So everybody in this group looks to be doing the turn. Bottigliero, hope I pronounced your name correctly, sir. So yes, they're working well together. I think Ellis is in this group, is he? Yeah, Ellis is in this group, so he's doing his share as well. So well done. And then these riders on the road are not going anywhere. And I don't mean that disparagingly. They'll accept what I'm saying because they're way too far behind. They're 4 kilometres behind. So they're not going to have any remote chance of closing that gap. And they know that. So they're riding for positions. And then you have this nice small group that have picked up Truvos and Truvis, and maybe one other rider. So they've joined nicely together. Hope they stay together and ride as a team towards the end. And then Fal, obviously, last man on the road, quite happy to do his own thing. So let's get back to the front, see what's happening. You've got Peter Brookwavel on the front and Lyons, who's done a really good set of turns on the front. And I'm going to jump back on the, I can't remember what time is, so I'm going to jump back on the bike. So we're going to head to me for just a little while here while we watch my power and cadence on the screen. Make sure that it picks me up. There I am. There's my power. There we go. I don't know why cadence takes that extra few seconds to kick in, but once it does, I can then jump back off again. So what we got? 25. As long as I keep remembering to get on the bike and we can get back to the action. I haven't had my coffee yet and I'm busting for one, so I may go grab a quick coffee and leave you with the front end of the race. But before I go, I just want to mention that, in fact, what's happening here? Have we got a gap? No, we haven't. I just want to mention that the race and the whole series is sponsored by Torm Cycle Clothing, Torm CC. And what they're doing is they're offering spot prizes for best team tactics, most combative rider, best riders over, various prizes along the way. I don't exactly know what they all are. And what I'm doing in the videos and my commentary is I'm calling out riders that have been particularly noticeable with their team tactics, with their strength, with their pulls, etc. And the ones that have really put in a great effort for their team or great solo efforts to pull back breaks, etc. Now, the criteria, as I say, has not been firmly decided. All I can do is make my recommendations to Paul from Torm Cycle Clothing, and Paul will make the final decision on who's going to get the freebies. But I have to say, the main decisions will probably not happen until I do the highlights programs, and I will be doing a highlights program for the racing and a highlights program for the sportives, at least one of each. And that's really when I get a chance to go back over the footage. And when we do the highlighting, that's what's going to be highlighted. Obviously, what happens in the races, the best of the action, but also in the highlights program, I'm going to be highlighting who the front runners in the various competitions are. And this will all be sorted before the end of next week. So don't worry, we'll have this all so that I can announce it when we get into the final weekend next week. You'll have an idea of what's going on and who's in the running, hopefully. And then we'll have the highlights programs where I'll be sat and hopefully have the new studio up and running. So it'll be a lot more polished because it'll be not live streamed, but actually recorded, which gives me much more editing power over the videos. And they can be a little bit more polished with exactly what's going on. So that's to look forward to. And this is why it's so important when I'm calling out the team tactics, because I can tell you now that there's already, from OTR, there's already half a dozen riders who are in the running for, having done the best work for their team. I'm paying particular attention to what bike today because the OTR boys shine almost every time the racing. The what bike boys I haven't really paid a lot of attention to because they've not really attacked a race like they have done today, and today's been pretty special. I think they've done a pretty good job, and we're nowhere near the end of the race yet, so I think we've more to see. They're obviously working very, very hard for their key man, and their key man is Decker. There's no two ways about it. He's the strongest rider in the what bike team. I'm fairly certain of that. Although Krajewski, if I pronounce his name correctly, does look very strong as well. So maybe I'm doing a few of the other members of the team a disservice. I mean, OTR, there's no question. They're working for Turcotte because he will more than likely take the overall in this series. But Decker's had a third place, so if Decker, gets a first place today, he's going to be right up there as well. And then it could all go down to next week, depending on what happens to Turcotte. If they really work him over and they can get him out of the top 5, shall we say, then anything can happen points wise. So a lot still to play for. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't see Turcotte being turned over. I just can't see it happening. He's too good. But you never know. Anyway, folks, I'm going to have to leave you here. I desperately need a drink. So I'm going to go and have a coffee. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and I'm going to pick up one of the riders. Now I can choose between Decker and Turcotte. And because Turcotte is the one that's the working over, I'm going to change the view and let you watch him for. So there we go. So I'm going to focus on Turcotte while I'm away and leave the view as it is, side on view. And there you go, they're attacking him already. So you enjoy the race coverage while I go and get a coffee. And I'll see you soon. I've not finished, I'm just going to make a coffee.
Ik pak even de minuten en een dinges voor je. Is je vader gespoeld met dat dan? Zelf doen? Oké. Dat ik moet afgelopen. Kom maar meisje. Ja, we moeten naar water. Ik heb één handdoek. Ja.
Okay, folks, I'm back. So let's pick up the action. Oh, we got Peter and Turcotte off the front with Lions. Now then, how far of a gap have they got? Ah, they've not got a gap, no. So it's still all together. Still the 10 men, as you can see out front. Or is it 10? Let's count. Have a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, 8 men. So they've whittled it down even further. Now, obviously, I'm going to have to review the footage to see what happened. So they've managed to whittle it down to 8 riders in the front group. Now, have the other drivers dropped out? Has there been technical issues? I don't know. This was a 10-man group. So let's work his way back and find out what's going on behind them. Well, that's James's teammate. But this was the group that was chasing earlier. So I don't think anybody, and they're doing well. They've really worked hard, this group here. Let's check on what's going on in the rest of the field. So this is Group 2 on the road, and they're just over a kilometre behind. So they've worked really hard here, and they're still I mean, look at the pace they're working at. 4 watt kilos. They're putting in really good turns here. So Ellis has been dropped off. Gil Gomez is an MTO. And then Sakini. Now, I don't know where Sakini was, I have to say. But we have this nice little group here working well. So they came together nicely. I think there were 5 the last time they were on the road, and they're still together. And Fow was definitely the last man on the road, so no change there. I mean, these groups are not fighting for the front end of the race, but they're doing their own race within a race, which is great. As are these boys. Ellis is in the middle at the moment. I expect, I can't recall whether he was with the group in front or whether he's sped on from the group behind. Not sure at the moment. But these boys are really putting in a sterling effort here. I mean, this is pretty impressive riding. But you would expect nothing more from James and his team. So, yeah, and the other riders helping out. Everybody doing the fair share by the look of it. And this is where the action is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Have they showed another rider? They have. There's 7 now. And this was 1, 2, 3. No, there's 8. Sorry, can't count. So yeah, 8 riders. So, and again, 8 riders to the finish. Probably not going to happen. So expect this to get broken up again as well. You can see that there's 2 more what we call kickers. There's one coming up very shortly. Only very tiny little spike, but it's a kicker. It's good enough for some of the riders to kick on with. And then shortly afterwards, you have a second one. But then that's it. It's more or less flat or downhill right up until the final closing kilometre or so, where you have that last little kicker hill. And that could be crucial. That could be where it's all decided. Because I don't see this group really splintering much more. They might drop the odd 1 or 2 now, but I think. And just as I say that commentator's curse, you're probably going to get somebody dropped off the back of this group, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to stay with the action, up the front for a little while I drink my coffee. That's a better view. So I'm also going to take the time to check up on the text, because I obviously have been away. So let's see what's happening. in the chat. And the really annoying thing about the using the iPhone for the chat is that it only shows like the last few minutes of messages. Yeah, the chatting amongst themselves, asking who's your money on in terms of the win, because Turcotte says I'm no sprinter. So yeah, and Pollock makes my point, which is a good point, Pollock, that there's a few kickers still to come. And I think there you are going off the front. But those kickers could be crucial, and particularly that last one could just be enough for a rider like Turcotte to get the sort of like few 50 meters he's going to need it, because 50 meters on that last kicker, 50-meter lead would be more than enough. You could take 50 meters into that downhill finish. So this is going to get interesting. I mean, we'll get an idea on this next kicker. I don't think it's going to break any of this team up. It's too short and and not really steep enough. But the one nearer the end is a little bit longer and could decide it. But there'll be some tired legs here because they've been battering away at each other for quite a while. So let's see what transpires. I'm looking forward to them getting to this next little, if you want to call it a hill, and see who ends up shooting up it. Okay, let's page up and find out. There's Decker, so we'll stay with Decker for a little while and just watch what he's up to, watch his numbers. His heart rate has gone up again. It got it down to the 120s and now it's back in the 150s. So he's definitely working. I mean, I don't know what his maximum heart rate. And you know, that would be information. Maybe I'll start to keep a diary on rider profiles and start learning what are the riders' maximum heart rates, etc. What are the power numbers? Because then I can give better commentary if I know, if I like, shall we say Decker's maximum heart rate is 190, then he's well within his compass at the moment. But if his heart rate was, shall we say, 180, then he's not that far away from that. So it would give me a better clue as to what's going on in terms of effort wise. I mean, RGT goes some way towards doing that with the, you can see underneath the riders' names, you can see the bars of colours changing. And that's supposed to indicate when, when it's green, they're going easy. When it turns different colours, then it's supposed to indicate how hard they're working. But I find it a bit of a difficult metric to follow. I mean, knowing somebody's power numbers and then applying them to where they are in the race is going to be a lot easier. So, time to call it out. Who's going to take the win? Who's my pick for today? Difficult one. difficult one, because if this group of 8, in fact, is it a group of 10 now? Have we got some more riders? No, we haven't. No. So I'm a little confused here because we've got Decker is 10th man on the road. So yeah. So who's up front then? You've got these two jumped off the front again on the Kickr. And I tell you what, they've got a decent sized gap as well. So what bike are definitely trying to turn over OTR? I mean, these two, Plager has done an amazing job today. He's got to be right up there with, I mean, Dowd has too, but Plager has done an amazing job today in terms of, his work ethic for the team off the front. Absolutely, excuse me, absolutely stunning. But he's not going to carry this gap to the finish. Yes, it's stretching them out. And if we go to the riders behind them, this could be anybody's. I mean, so calling a winner, I don't know. This is going to be I mean, that fellow, Krajewski, whatever his name is, he looks like a smart rider. He's riding very strong, but he's never sort of like showing off his quality, which is a sign of a good, strong rider. Decker, I don't know. I'm going to go with Decker. I'd like to go with Maxime, but I just think Decker's team have done all this work, and he's not going to want to he's not going to be letting him down, but he's going to want to take advantage of all this work the team are doing for him, because they're definitely working over Maxime Turcotte. So yeah, my money's on Decker today. I think he's biding his time, and it's all going to come down to that last Kickr. I'm pretty convinced of that. And one of the support riders could well take this, because if the support riders try to make a break towards the end of the ride, like Plager and Dowd have done up the front, then it could stick. In fact, let's go back up the front and find out what's the gap now. Yeah, they brought it down. So they brought the gap down to 190, and they're going to bring it back. That's not going to stick. These riders haven't done all this work to allow two riders to get off the front at this point. Now, if those two riders had done this on that last Kickr, then they'd be contesting the win, because there's no way they would be caught. But this group is going to pull them back, and they're not going to allow that to happen on the next Kickr. Whoever's at the front of the group at the top of the next Kickr is going to be in with the winning break, because this group is going to split on that next Kickr. There's no two ways about it. Some of these legs are very tired. Now, where will Maxime finish? Will he get second place? I don't know. I don't know how much damage they've done to him. I mean, Peter's looking really good, but I'm going to call Decker as the winner today, and I think Maxime's going to be there. So I don't know. That Lions looks strong as well. I'm not going to call it. I'm calling the winner, but I'm not going to call the minor places, the next places, because these guys have worked too hard. This has been a fantastic effort by both Team OTR to stay in it, because let's be honest, what bike have had far superior numbers and still managed to dictate the race. So really, really impressed by this ride. And Peter's been a fantastic teammate for Turcotte. He's just put in so much work. We're going to find out shortly, because we're getting towards the exciting part of this race now. And you can see, let's just go slightly forwards again for you. And you can see that the gap's come down to 170 metres, well, just short 160 metres now. So they're bringing the gap down. We're on the relatively easier terrain now. So the gap's going to close pretty quickly now that we've got over that lump that they went over. I mean, it'll fluctuate for a little while. Omar's putting in a nice dig. It'll fluctuate, but they're going to bring this gap back. They may well leave them out front for a little while longer, but they're going to bring the gap back. They can't afford to be running into that Kickr and allowing those two riders out front a gap. And you can see from the power numbers, well, you don't even need to look at the power numbers. Just look at the way the riders are changing the pace up. This is going all the way to the end with these riders. I still don't think it's going to be a sprint, though. I think Decker will win, but not by sprinting. Because if it's a sprint, then it's anybody can take this ride. It's not necessarily the big men like Decker and Maxime Turcotte. I mean, I'll be honest, if it does come down to a sprint, then I like the look of that Krajewski. Kia, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I like the look of him. Looks like a big rider. You have to admire Turcotte, though. His work ethic, and just the way that nothing seems to faze him. They've tried to pull him apart in this ride, and he's just stuck with it all and still looks strong. Maybe he will overhaul Decker. I don't know. It's getting exciting. So let's just check out the two in front and how far ahead are they now? 160 meters. So they've pegged it at 160. I still maintain, they'll pull this back, but they don't want to leave it too late. They really don't. Okay. Anyway, what we're going to do is, to be fair to the other riders, we're going to now work his way back down through the field. And what time is it? What time did I last get on the bike? Before I do that, I'm going to jump on the bike because I have no idea when I last did so. I know I went for a coffee, so I'm going to jump back on the bike, turn the pedals over, and then I know for at least the finish I'm going to be, I'm not going to get kicked out. I hate to miss, I mean, that would be unforgivable. What I'm really hoping for as well as the ability to be able to select riders from the list with a mouse, that's my number one ask of RGT. But my next ask of RGT is to not have to do what I'm doing here and jump on the bike. If they could make it so that I can commentate without actually needing to jump on the bike every 30 minutes, that would be wonderful. And I'm sure there's a way of doing it. Maybe I'll have a word with them and ask if it's possible. Because it would make this so much easier for me. I wouldn't have to keep worrying about, getting kicked from the event. And as I move forward with my broadcasts and this lot, like I say, I've plans on making it a lot more polished, and I'm going to be branding RGT a little bit more. I've already got some transitions and this on the way. So yeah, the stream is going to become a little bit more professional. So it would be nice if I got something back in return. Anyway, that's by the by. Let's get back to the racing. I'm going to work my way back down through the field now and have a look at the riders behind. This gap has closed now, well, only by a few meters. So they're pegging it at 160, give or take. There's the chasing group. They really need to peg this back before it gets into the final stages, though. If they, I'd feel a little bit unhappy if those riders out the front had a 170 meter gap with, shall we say, 5 kilometers to go. So let's see what happens. Okay, let's. Now Mitchell, has he been dropped from that front group, or was he part of the chasers who's just decided to leave James and his group? I can't. Yeah. It looks like the chasing group has split up now. There's various reasons for that, but the main reason for having a split is because either the group that you're with isn't going fast enough, or it's going, some members in it are going too fast and you just can't handle the pace. I don't know what's happened here, but I am surprised to see Mitchell and James riding separately. That does surprise me a little bit, because these three, now were these three not riding at a sufficient pace that James here has decided, no, I'm going to push on, because he's putting out good numbers here, and I suspect that's the reason. That's the reason why James is currently on his own at the moment, and maybe even Mitchell too. Maybe Mitchell has turned around and said, okay, guys, you're really not working as hard as I want to, so I'm going to push on. And James is definitely doing that. Look at what kilos he's putting out. So he's obviously said that these three behind him, okay, folks, I'm leaving you because I want to push on. I'm fairly certain I'm right in that. That's really the only scenario that makes sense to me here. And then you've got Ellis on the road. Now he's chasing that small group of three in front of him, but I don't see him closing up that gap before the end of the race. So he's probably just fighting for his current place on the road. And then the next riders are a long way behind. But I'm going to capture every single rider coming into the finish. So, don't hang up your hat as soon as the front group get over the line. Stay with the commentary, because we'll watch all the riders come in and see. And generally you see some pretty good performances, many riders, and I know the riders, the ilk of James and this lot, they really do put in a sterling effort towards the end of the ride. And you sometimes think to yourself, wow, where did they get that from? But so it's worth sticking with, riders lower down the field just to watch them come into the finish. And that's what I'm going to be doing. I think Sakini had issues earlier on. I seem to remember in the chat whether it was a dropout or something, but he did definitely have issues. So that's probably why he's at the back with this group here. But it's nice to see them staying together, and they've ridden a good few kilometres together. What surprises me is seeing Tash drop from that group. And again, there could be various reasons for that. He could have had a technical, or he could just, have decided that the pace is more than what he wanted, or he's not comfortable with it. You don't know. And then you've got Farl, and he's the last rider on the road now, and has been so for quite a while. So we'll get him coming into the finish. I mean, he's got 29 kilometres to do, and then if you go to the front, Vambers is currently out front, so they have caught. I mean, Vambers wasn't off the front, so he's jumped off the front. Strong rider. He's got Lyons with him, another rider who I picked if it comes down to a sprint. So these two have got a small gap, but I suspect the group. Yeah, I'm right. The group have all come together. Look. So sure enough, I said they didn't want to allow the gap, which was 13 kilometres, to get down to sort of lap 5. And right on cue, they brought it all back together, which is really common sense, because if somebody jumps off at this point now with like under 10 kilometres to go and gets a decent gap, there's a very realistic chance that they're going to keep it with a Kickr coming up. Because if they can speed on and get up that Kickr and get on the crest and over the top, as the group are chasing them down the other side, they're not going to get caught. So the group have got to be mindful here. They've got to stay together, got to be mindful. We're getting into the meat and bones of the race now. I mean, Vanber's obviously what bike member. He jumped off the front, obviously, to pull the pace again, to try and work over. Let's go back to the front to try and work over the OTR riders, which is Brookwavel and I think that's that's Brookwavel going over off the front, Peter. So yeah, they're trying to work over the OTR boys, but Peter's had an amazing ride. I am so impressed with his work ethic today. It's just been amazing. And Turcotte, what can you say? They're just not wearing him down. He's looking amazingly strong. I mean, we don't know. We don't know what his legs are saying to him, but if you can take a cue from what's happening on the screen, it just looks like, okay, yeah, I'm not having any difficulty with what you're trying to do here. We'll know afterwards when I speak to them, but it just looks, and obviously I will do a little bit of chatter with the guys before I do the highlights program, just to get their feelings. Like I had a word with Stephen and asked him what did he think of IGT racing, because it was his first win on the platform, and it's useful just to ask a rider, okay, how did you think that went, etc. So I will maybe retroactively be having a word with a few of the riders just to get their thoughts and feelings prior to going into the highlights programs. Now, if I can get it sorted in time tomorrow, I've got a bit of a special treat in that I'm hoping to have the cameras up and working tomorrow so that you can see part of my studio. And if that happens, if I get the time to do that this evening, I've got a bit of a special treat showing off the Torm CC cycle jersey. So I'm hoping that will happen. But if it doesn't happen, then it will happen with the highlights programs and the final weekend next weekend. So, but this is getting pretty exciting now. The group have split. You can see that 6 riders now have pushed on. So these, let's just see if we can flick the camera around. You've got 6 riders here. And if I flick the camera around, can I do it? Can I do it? Yeah. You can see that they're out of sight of the chasers. So they've got a 230-meter gap on the chasers behind. And I'm just going to very quickly go to the chasers just to see who's... There we go. So you've got Vambers, who I fancied in the sprint. You've got Plager, who's done an amazing amount of work. Dowd has done a lot of work. So no surprise that to see Plager and Dowd, you know, distanced here. Bit surprised to see Vambers, but yeah, no surprise here to me to see them dropped off the front group because of the amount of work they've done earlier on. And that's where, you know, the prize for the best team member comes in. You know, you got riders like Plager who have put in an absolutely fantastic effort for the team, and now he's paying for it himself. So back to the front, you got so what we've got 2 you've got 2 OTR riders and 2 Watt bike riders. So who's going to come out on top is anybody's guess, but this is pretty exciting. 6 kilometers to go, and we're going to now stay with we're not going to move away from these. Maybe have a look at the riders behind in the following group, but certainly I'm not going to leave this front end of the race now. And I can't see Pollock, Vambers, Dowd and Plager closing up the 300 metres to these guys. They're in race mode now towards the finish, pushing up the pace. And you can see from the speed and the power numbers being put out. This is full on now. The winner's going to come from these 6. And I think this Kickr, you can see from the white paddle on screen, they're getting very close to the start of the Kickr, and that and Peter looks like he's tired. Yeah, Peter looks like is he getting dropped? Is he finished now? Let's just turn him round. Oh, he might get back on. Peter, yeah, he's going to get back on. Good lad, well done. Okay, so these 6 riders, they're going to get to this Kickr, and that's going to decide this race. I'm pretty sure of that. You're going to see these 6 splinter on this next Kickr. And I said Krajowski, if this comes down to a final sprint, he's my pick for the sprint. Peter really looks like he's I mean, he's having to put out some good numbers here to get back, but he looks like he's tired. I hope I'm not doing him a disservice, but he does. He looks tired. And his teammate, Turcotte, just looked... You know, commentators curse. You call a rider tired, and then look what happens. He shoots off the front. But Turcotte is just looking so strong, as is Decker. So I think you've got your first and second there, if it's not a sprint. If it's a sprint, then... I don't know, Decker I think has got a decent sprint on him. I think I've seen him on Swift winning a sprint, so I think he's got a decent sprint on him. That's assuming it's the same Decker I've seen on Swift, which I'm pretty convinced it is because he was a German as well. So now this is the kicker. This is the kicker starting, and this is where I really think, I mean, Maxime, is this going to split them? And if it doesn't, then it's an all-out sprint for the finish with 4 kilometers to go. They're not going to be, they're going to be staying together if they get up this kicker and they haven't split. This is pretty exciting. Who's your money on, folks? Tell you what, it would be really nice if you can put your answer in the comments before the end of the race. Who's your money on? Who's going to take this? And while you're at it, don't forget to give the video a like. And of course, if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. But let's concentrate on the racing. They're all looking good. There's nobody in this group that really, I mean, I thought Peter was looking tired, but he's just battling away. This is going to go down to the wire, isn't it? And just to, I'm not going to switch to them because I want to stop with what's happening here. But the 4 riders behind, Van Bers, Plager, Dowd and Pollack, they only had they had a 200-meter gap. But that's now gone out to 500, 600 meters. Dowd is trying his best to close the gap, but he's 500 meters behind, and the others are even further. So 500-600 meters. So that shows you the effort being put in by these front 6. They're really pushing on when riders the caliber, of Dowd and Pollack can't close the gap on them. So, and Plager, of course. And Van Bers is no slouch. So they can't close the gap. So these guys up front here are really pushing on. Which is why they're staying together, because they're obviously, there's much of a muchness in terms of power at the moment. They're over the kicker and still all together. So this is an out-and-out sprint now. 2.2 kilometers to go, and it's an out-and-out sprint. And I don't think Decker and Maxime are going to win this. I think I'm going to go with Kickr as the winner of the sprint. There's still time for one of the riders to break away. I say that and then Turcotte puts in a dig, but there's still time for one of the riders. I mean, Lyons looks amazingly strong to break away before we get to the sprint. And that's the only way I can see a non-sprinter winning this. So and I just realised from Dowd's comment that, of course, Wattbike, I keep calling them Wattbike, but they are Ratio Racing. That's the RR that you can see next to Decker's name. So Wattbike are actually RR, Ratio Racing. Okay. Now, remember what I said about Kickr? He's jumped off the front. It's not going to stick at this point, but let's just go to him. He's jumped off the front. He's got a 60-meter gap. Ooh, ooh, now then. Has he got it? It looks like he's got the power to possibly make this stick. Wow. So I picked the winner, but not with a sprint. He's jumped off the front. I said he looked strong. And it looks like he's going to take this win. 60 metres, is that enough? When the big hitters start putting out the red numbers. Is that going to be enough? Wow, what a finish. What a finish. And yes, he's going to, I mean, look, 15 watts from Decker. He's got an amazing sprint on him, but oh, wow, is he going to catch him? I'm going to stay with, they're catching him. They're catching him now. Whoa, come on, overhead. There goes Decker. Wow. There goes Decker off the front. What's happening here? Okay. Well, what a strange finish. Anyway, Decker took the win. I don't know where the finish line was. I'm on Decker now and it's showing 79 meters to go. So there's a glitch in the software, folks. That wasn't me. That's the software. You can clearly see that it's showing Decker 79 meters remaining. So that's a definite glitch in the software. I need to play this back because I'm really uncertain now exactly what happened. Let's go to the riders behind and see if we can actually see the. Okay, so we got down. There's the start finish banner. Look. So who actually got the win? I mean, if that is the start finish banner, I mean, it's still showing. Even for Dowd, it's showing 46 meters to go. This is really confusing. I'm not getting riders coming in because I'm so confused with what's happening here. It's just nonsensical. What on earth is happening? Oh, this is such a shame to have the end of the race. I mean, it's showing free, but he's stopped and it's showing. What's going on? Okay, we'll stay with Mitchell. It's showing 1.7 kilometers to Mitchell, but if we go back to Pollock, it's showing. Can't believe this. I've covered the whole race and then I get a finish like this. Okay, I'm going to stay with Mitchell. He's coming in. Let's see what actually happens here. Okay, we've got the red kite coming up in front of him now. So I have genuinely no idea who's won this race because yeah, Lions, I did see an early finish banner. Okay, okay, let's turn Mitchell around and watch him. Now, you see, there's the banner and it's showing, look, early finish banner, but he's got 400 and odd meters to go. But that's obviously the finish banner, judging by the people by the side of the road. This is really worrying. Okay, so who won? Well, no, who is it must have won? Kuduskia must have won. Or did Decker? You see, I don't know because it's still showing this Mitchell. Look, Mitchell's still, and there's another finish banner. So that's the finish banner. He's just gone under. So the first finish banner wasn't the finish banner. And if that's the case, then Decker won. Okay, well, there's nothing I can do about if they can't get that side of it right. I'd better get back on the bike to cover the other riders coming in. But that's a little bit frustrating when you cover a race and then you get a glitch like that happening. I mean, Decker's speed at the end, you saw the watts he was putting out. Phenomenal. So I didn't think he was going to catch Kudowski, but he did. Okay, let's go back to what's happening. Here we go. So they've gone under the first banner. They've gone under the first finish banner. And they're now coming up to the second finish banner. Here we go. I can only apologise, folks. I can't do anything about the glitches happening here. So and Simmons is there. You go. You see, he's gone under the. There's the finish banner, but even the finish banner isn't showing his finish meters correctly. So there's a definite problem here. Okay, let's find out who else is on the road. Ellis. So instead of being able to follow every rider into the line, I haven't been able to do so because I've just been totally confused by that early finish banner and then by the meters left after they've gone under the finishing banner. It's really been very difficult. And a little bit upsetting, to be honest, after. We've got about another 10 minutes coverage, maybe a little, because the riders bringing up the tail end of the race have got another 4.5 kilometres and 5 kilometres to do. So I'll stay with it. We'll get the riders finishing and see whether any of the riders actually do finish at 0 meters remaining instead of the different distances that are being given. What I'm going to just very quickly do is pull up the RGT DB website and just check. There's the group ride. There's the race. So I can check in real time. Yeah, and Jan Decker obviously took the win from Kuduskia and Robert Lyons. So Lyons, I said he was strong. Maxime Turcot finished 6th. So yeah, Peter finished. Well, I'll give you the top 10. You've got Jan Decker in first. You've got Andrei Kudjuskaya in second. Robert Lyons in third. Bernard Omar in fourth. Peter Brookwavel in fifth. Maxime Turcot in sixth. Oliver Dowd in seventh. Alex Plager in eighth. Jorgen van Bers in ninth. And John Polak in 10th. So there's your top 10, which is totally thrown into chaos by the false finish. And you've got Ellis here coming into the finish now. So let's spin round and see. And there's the first finishing banner that confused me, and not just me, but everybody. And you can see these riders at the side of the road. So have those riders stopped before? You know, it could well be the case that those riders are not going to get a place because they could have stopped under that first finishing banner. And in fact, I think that's what's happened, you know. I think those riders are possibly not going to get finish. And in fact, I'm going to go back to we'll just watch this rider coming in, and then I'm going to go back to the IGT website and see whether James is actually on the finish list. And if not, I need to message him and let him know that it's not showing him as finished because he hasn't gone under the second finish banner. Now, this is the first rider I've seen actually. Here we go. We'll stay with these two. But that's the first rider I've seen where the countdown has been almost correct. So let's go back to the website. And there's the race. Now, where's James on this list? 12th. So it is showing him. So I'm glad about that because it would have been pretty horrible had he finished and it not counted him in the results. Okay, so these riders have got 3.5 kilometers to go. So that amazing where you saw on my footage Jan Decker coming round Kudjowski, that was the winning move. Okay, let's jump back on the bike, make sure we don't get so I'm just going to flick to myself, make sure I don't get kicked out of the race, and then I should be able, this hopefully will be the last time I need to jump on the bike. I should be able to catch the rest of the riders coming in, I hope. Anyway, I'll check to there we go. I'll check to see what the last rider on the road has got to do distance wide. Here we go. So these riders are the next riders to come in. Yeah. And let's just quickly leave these two. They've got 2 kilometers to go, so I've got time to leave them. Then you've got this small group coming in behind them. And then behind them, you've got Tash. He's got 6 kilometres to go. Whoa, then you've got Fald with 15 kilometres to go. Now, I like to get every rider coming in. So how long am I going to have to wait for your man here? Yeah, okay. We'll get him coming into the finish. So it's just check the message and see if anybody's answering the question. I think it's because we finished with a lap and a half in the velodrome. Okay. Yeah, a great ride. I have to admit it. I've really enjoyed covering it. It's just from my point of view, I just don't want to make the mistake. I don't want to be um, the reason why the race winner wasn't easily identifiable, um, which is only natural when when you cover a race for 3 hours and you don't want to screw up at the end. So under the kite, these guys, and they'll go under the false banner, but keep going with a bit of luck. They won't. Hopefully, they've seen the messages and they'll keep riding. Liège, Liège, Bastogne, Liège next weekend. Looking forward to that one. That's a route that I've ridden in real life as well. I mean, I've ridden this Paris Roubaix, in real life. The full route, the full 265 kilometres. So this is the first finish. And James apparently says it's due to the fact that the finish in real life is on a velodrome and you have to do a lap of the velodrome. So that's why you've got the finish banner. So switching the view around. Whoops. Oh, no. Watch Gil take the banner first. And it's just round this corner. So you sweep round this corner and there's the finish banner, which again is difficult to cover. There we go. And MTO. Okay. Maybe that wasn't the best view with the trees and everything to catch people coming over the line. So maybe I'll stay with this view. Yeah, it's a bit difficult to there's the finish line. Look, or is that the first? Yeah, that's the first. This is so confusing. That's the first finish line, and obviously not the finish line. Sam is obviously wanting to leave the guys behind, making a nice effort. What would be nice is when RGT get to the point where they can actually turn that into a velodrome, where the graphics packs at the moment they've only got the mountains and the greenery, the hillsides, etc. But when they get round to making further graphics packs, hopefully a velodrome will be one of them. Okay, let's find out what's happening with the next riders on the road. So they've come in. There's Tash, and he's got 4.2 kilometers to go. So oh, excuse me. So I've got a busy evening. I'm sit down, have tea with the kids, watch a little bit of telly, and then back up here to organise the studio for tomorrow. I don't know if I'll get everything finished. It would be nice if I did, but probably not. So it'll probably be next weekend before you see my full new setup, which I'm quite excited about. Now, those of you that are still with the broadcast, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing, support the channel. I'm doing a lot of work on behalf of RGT. And if I can see a little bit of return by growing the YouTube channel, I'd be very grateful. Tomorrow we've got, I think the sportive, in fact, I don't think, I know, if it follows previous weeks, then the sportive is on this exact same course. So the sportive's going to be a fast run as well tomorrow. I really wish I could have taken part in it, but I'm still absolute, and you probably tell from my voice today, but I'm still absolutely full of cold. Aching limbs, and it just wouldn't make any sense to try and get on the bike. I'm probably off the bike for another good week, so I'm just not willing to risk the heavy cold getting on my chest and causing me severe breathing problems. So I'm taking it easy. I'm listening to my partner Hilke advice and staying away from the bike in terms of actually riding. But there'll be full commentary tomorrow of the whole event. And we're probably looking at another 3-hour broadcast. Hopefully we'll get a good turnout. We've had a decent turnout today. I mean, this series has been pretty nice, but in the early part we didn't see the numbers of riders I would have liked to have seen. Today's been a decent turnout, 30 odd riders. So, but hopefully, you know, as James continues to put on these kind of events, I think he's done a wonderful job. We'll see more take up. But there's a lot going on RGT at the moment. There's a lot of events, a lot of races going on. So maybe a less busy spot would see a bigger take up. But they really have been well run. Shout out to Samir for his Magic Roads, Samir's Magic Roads. He's done a wonderful job in digitizing these courses. You know, we've had Milan San Remo, Flanders, and now the Roubaix. Next week we've got Liège, Bastogne, Liège. So big shout out to Samir and his Magic Roads. And of course, don't forget our sponsor, who's going to be giving out spot prizes later on. Torm Cycle Clothing. The website's Torm CC. And they do amazing merino wool jerseys. I've had a look at them. I've got one in my possession, which you may well see tomorrow if I can sort this studio out tonight and get the cameras up and going. But if not, you will definitely see in both the highlights programs and next weekend. when we'll be full on in race clothing. So yeah, really enjoying covering this series. It's nice to support one of the very best organisers on RGT, James Ogilvie, and his team at OTR. And don't forget, I'm getting a chance to waffle away here because we're watching these last few riders coming in, but don't forget I cover the cycling time trials evening 10 on the Mondays. So that will happen on Monday evening. It's on the V718 course over in South Cave, Hull, and it's currently the UK's fastest course, which has been digitised for the event. There's the 1 kilometre to go banner. So we get some fast times. I mean, the winning times of 21, 22 minutes in the events, which is great to see. Rob Stone took the win this last week, and I'll be covering that again on Monday. And then on Tuesdays, we have the Team 3R group ride, which is always a good event. And it's repeated on Thursday night. Sadly, I wasn't able to take part because of this stinking cold, but yeah, always good event. We welcome new riders, we welcome riders of any ability, because I program bots to ride from like 1 watt kilo all the way up to 4 5. So there'll always be a pace that suits you under the first finish banner with Tash here. So yeah, please join us. And as I say, I usually live stream the group rides, but as I get more sorted out with my studio, and I start to look at my my streams, I'll probably be doing less live streaming and more race coverage, where I'll cover the race, record it, and then post the video later, because I don't think people want to sit through 3 hours every time of racing. I think to do a highlights program makes much more sense. So that's Tash under the line. He's just finished. And then we have our last rider on the road, Mr. Fowl. And we'll watch him coming in and wrap everything up today. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Now, I'm not sure what time tomorrow's ride kicks off, so I'll just pull up the website while Fowl's completing his ride here, and we'll have a look. Now, the easiest way, I don't know if you guys have worked this out, but the easiest way to find out what's going on and what time events go off, you could say, well, I'll go into the app, but if you go to RGTDB, all the events are in there. And I'm now using that as my go-to resource for finding out when races are taking part, because I can check the times of everything going off. And let's have a look. So I think it's 2 o'clock tomorrow, but GMT. Okay, so tomorrow's sportive goes off at 2 o'clock GMT, which is my time here in Europe. I'm in Holland. So my time in Europe, it's 1500 hours CET, but 1400 hours GMT. And that's what time we'll be kicking off tomorrow. And as I say, the sportive will be covering this exact same distance, this exact same course. So 95 kilometers, roundabout, I reckon, the same as this, a 3-hour broadcast. Although I will probably dip in and out tomorrow. I'm not going to, sorry, but I'm not going to sit here for 3 hours covering a sportive, purely and simply because I think you would get as bored as hell just sitting. You know, when you're watching a race, you can call out the tactics and everything else. When you're just watching riders on the road, it doesn't necessarily have the same appeal to a lot of people. And certainly I don't find it exciting, although the sportives have been good. They've been really exciting rides as well, because sportives are an unofficial race. They're for the guys that can't be putting out 3 and 4 watt kilos for the duration. So yeah, you have some good performances, and but I must admit, I'll be glad to finish off this broadcast because I'm getting pretty tired now. I, I've struggled with my breathing in the evenings when trying to sleep, so I'm not getting a full night's sleep at all. And then you've got the kids waking us up before 6 o'clock in the morning, like they were this morning. In fact, 5 o'clock, the youngest, Charlotte. So, sleep is like a bit of a premium in this house. We don't really get good night's sleep on the weekends. So I'm feeling pretty tired, looking forward to my tea and another cup of coffee. Now, why is he stopping? He's turned red there. Come on, keep it going. 6.5 kilometers to go. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to my tea, another cup of coffee, and then a bit of relaxation time before I'm back up here in the studio sorting everything out. It must be a lonely ride when you like this man, Mr. Fowl, last man on the road, and you're waiting to finish, riding to the finish solo and on your own. Must be pretty. Well, I mean, I've been there. I've done it. I did it in the first sportive. So because I was doing the race coverage as well, I wasn't concentrating on the riding in particular, and I was just getting dropped from the groups I was riding with, and not because I wasn't strong enough, but because my attention was elsewhere. And when I got back to looking at myself, I found that I just wasn't with the group I was riding with anymore. Okay, Sakina, I hope to see you later. I hope you get your problem solved. You had a power meter problem, so yeah. Oh, okay. I mean, I don't have to do this, folks, but I just feel it's showing respect for for every rider that takes on this course. I mean, riding for 3 hours um, in a virtual environment on an indoor trainer is not easy for anybody. And this coming from, an ultra endurance rider, used to do 24 hours plus. It's not easy doing 3 hours unless you're used to riding that kind of distance on an indoor trainer is a hard pull. And so the reason why I stay with all the riders coming home and don't just leave the broadcast, which I'm perfectly entitled to do. I don't have to wait and catch the riders at the back end of the race, but I do it because I have a respect for not just the riders pushing out, the incredible wattages at the front, but I have ultimate respect for the riders at the back, which has been me in the past as well. So, you know, I just think it's only fair that we stay and cover all the riders and not just pick and choose, not just show those up at the front end of the race, but to show those at the back as well. And we've had some wonderful performances from riders. I mean, obviously, if Mr. Fowl is really, and it looks like he's struggling a little bit, judging by his pace fluctuating the way it is. But after 3 hours, you're going to have tired legs, so no excuses there. But I think it's only fair that you give full credit to all the riders on the road. Because not everybody can win and not everybody can be in that front group. And my hope is as well that anybody watching these broadcasts will see the way I'm committed to not just the superstars of RGT, but to every rider. And hopefully, when they come along and watching the broadcast, they'll hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because they could well be in the next event that I'm covering, and they'll get their call out. Because I genuinely do. Oh, there's my name on the road. Look. That's a nice touch by RGT, putting riders' names on the road. But yeah, covering all the riders and showing commitment to RGT the way I do, all I ask in return is that riders show a little bit of commitment to me. There aren't that many streamers on RGT. There's literally hundreds on Swift, but there aren't that many on RGT at the moment. You've got some really good ones, and you've got some professional broadcasters as well. You've got Mike Lister, who's he works for one of the outfits at the moment, and he also does his own private streaming, and he's building up his YouTube presence. You've got Jonathan Crane. He's probably out front in terms of subscribers. I think he's been going the longest, and he's got a really nice following now. He also does Swift, so that undoubtedly helps him with his subscriber base. I mean, I used to cover Swift, but what's happened there is I brought Team 3R over to RGT, and I genuinely cannot at this time afford to keep two, or even to keep Swift subscription going in the background. It just doesn't make any sense to me to be paying a subscription to Swift when I'm not using it, because my time is devoted to RGT. So if I was covering the odd event in Swift, then it would probably be worthwhile, but I just don't have the resources and the time. So paying for a subscription to just occasionally dip into it just doesn't make any sense. So I cancelled my subscription, and mainly for the reason that I want to see Team 3R grow on RGT. I mean, if it gets anything like it did on Swift, where we get 500 plus riders on the group rides. I mean, my group rides on Swift were, the last few were over 500 riders on the what we call the True 2 ride, and amazing rides, amazing community over there. And I just hope that, given enough time, we can grow a similar community on RGT. you have the likes of Herd Racing. They're growing a really nice community on RGT. You've got a guy called Lou Ricks who leads group rides on RGT every weekend and during the week as well, but in particular on the weekends. And he's getting upwards of 100 riders on some of his group rides on the weekends. So that's fantastic. There is a place for it on RGT, the bigger group rides. The platform's growing, and I'm hoping to be a part of that, not just with the streaming and the event coverage, but with the community as well. I'm hoping my rides take off and we'll have riders taking part, and we start to grow large numbers. It's early days yet, so I'm not seeing big numbers. I think the most I've had is 40 on one of the rides. Just recently, it's been much, much less than that, and I can't really understand why, but maybe because there's just so much going off at the moment on RGT. And they've had a few technical issues, which doesn't help the newcomers. But I'm hoping to grow Team 3R's presence on RGT, and then, by growing the presence, grow the community, and that can only benefit the riders and the RGT community. So we'll see what happens as we come into this ride. 1.5 kilometers to go and just over the 3-hour mark. So yeah, nice milestone, 3 hours broadcast. Obviously a little bit more because I always start the broadcast that few minutes early. Make sure we're all set up and check things. So thank you everybody if you've stuck with it. I don't think there'll be many people watching now, this lone rider coming in. But if you are, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow, 1400 hours GMT, 1500 hours CET, where I will cover this same course, but with the sportive riders. There's the 1 kilometer to go banner, so we're getting very close to the finish now. We'll just watch this rider going under the 2 finish banners. Don't forget we've got 2. We've got the first one, which is the first lap, and then we've got the second one, which is the end of the race. So he's going to come into the first finish banner very shortly. I'll cover him, swing the camera around and follow him. There we go. Now I think the first banner's just round this bend. So there we go, yeah. So there's the first finish banner. Now it's a loop. So now it's a circle, because this is replicating a velodrome, which one day RGT will digitize and they'll have their own velodrome. But at the moment, we get the virtual environment of I know it's called Spring in Europe. So this is the graphics pack called Spring in Europe. But you can see it's it's an oval that is riding round. So this is the velodrome that he's on at the moment, where you're to be in real life. Whoops, let's try and get the best view. And he's just coming round the corner now, and there's the finish line. Okay, so that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Sorry about the glitches we had earlier. We didn't realize there was 2 finish lines, so that caused a little bit of confusion. But we got our finishers. We got Jan Dekker took the win. He was my pick, so yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. And on that note, I'll say good night and thank you. Stay safe.